Olá, boa noite a todo mundo.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here with you today for this event, Cybersecurity and Diversity, focused on technology advance and demographic evolution. This topic is very important. This sector has been growing a lot. In Brazil last year, we had like 700,000 professionals getting into this area. It's gigantic in terms of labor, and there's still a deficit of professionals only in Brazil, and the importance is growing every day. I'm going to talk very briefly about this event's flow. So we're going to spend most of our time talking to our guests. After a brief opening, I'm going to speak English and I'll talk to Chuck Kessler. Then we're going to speak with André Vidal, who is an expert in Brazil. And we're going to count with the participation of two Unilever students and professionals of this area. Ariadne, I'm sorry, and Lillian, I had the honor to work with them last year and this year as global investors. I'm Jason Diet, the Vice President of the Uninter Hub Group. This event, Talking Business, is part of a series of events that happen um, every other week, or next one's going to be next week, actually. And you can follow us on YouTube and other social media. This event's being broadcast in English by the Global Hub channel and in Portuguese by the Uninter channel. So with that, I'd like to thank the opportunity to all Uninter directors and its leadership. And without further ado, I'm gonna switch to English and I'm gonna talk to Chuck Kessler.
I'll give a very brief synopsis of your bio and then look forward to jumping into questions. So Chuck Kessler is the Chief Information Security Officer at Pendo, a quickly growing technology company in the United States based in North Carolina. He has 20 years of experience solving very complex information security and compliance challenges for large enterprises. He's served as Chief Information Security Officer at Pendo for the past 5 years, and Pendo's focus is on deepening clients' software adoption. So information security is critical both to the company itself and to its clients. For 7 years prior to Pendo, he was the Chief Information Security Officer for the Duke University Health System. That system is a world-class healthcare network, so also quite complex. And for 6 years prior to that, he was at Symantec, a leading company in the information security space, of course. He's experienced at building cross-functional teams and a culture of information security that goes beyond any one single function. So, Chuck, thank you so much for being with us.
Very glad to be here. The invitation.
So the first question I have for you is a very basic one. What does Pendo do? And what is the importance of information security to the company?
Yeah, you touched on it earlier. You said broadening or deepening software adoption. So yes, we work with companies all across the world, helping them build better software. We provide product analytics, ways for product managers and engineering leaders and company leaders to understand how their users are engaging with their software, finding trouble spots where they have friction using software, and helping to understand how to improve those trouble spots in the software. And also we provide in-app training guidance. So for example, if a new feature is being launched or if you're a new user to an application, we allow product managers to themselves, without developer expertise, build guidance, little pop-up boxes that you see in an application that shows you the features in the application, helps you understand what those features are, how to use them, highlighting things that you might otherwise miss in the application. So by doing that, users have a better software experience, and that's ultimately what we're trying to do, is ensure that that those users have a great experience using the software that our customers build.
Thanks. So as I said at the outset, you've worked in a range of different companies over your career in leadership roles, and I'm just curious, what are the primary differences and the similarities in the work you did at Symantec and then later at the Duke University Healthcare Systems and now at Pendo?
Yeah, I mean, I think each organization has had been at a different stage in its existence. Obviously, the Duke University Health System had been around for approximately 100 years. Symantec was not 100 years old, but yes, it was a 30, 40-year-old company. And Pendo is an 8-year-old. We're actually going on 9 years old. So it is a very fast-growing company, but each one of those organizations had prior to Pendo a lot of history that kind of came along with that. So I think for me, what was interesting about it, the roles were a little different. When I was at Symantec, I was providing consulting services, so I was working with our customers. We had mostly Fortune 500 customers, and they were all struggling with their security programs, looking for guidance, looking to make them better. And we had the opportunity to go in and help analyze their security programs, find areas where things could be improved, and provide that guidance to them. That was fun, but at the end of the day, I didn't own the execution of all that advice we provided. When I had the opportunity to move to Duke, it was a chance to actually own the execution. So not only determining what those issues were, but actually executing on the program. And that's actually a very different thing, right? It's as a consultant, it's very easy to provide all the the best practices that are written in the book that you're supposed to do. Now, how you actually implement those things is a lot more complicated than that. So I was very happy to have that opportunity to put my knowledge to work and actually implement a security program in a very large organization. When I was recruited to come to Pendo, again, I've been there since November of 2018. When there were about 250 people at Pendo at that time, as opposed to at Duke, there were 30,000 people, right? So a much smaller organization, but very, very fast growing at 60, 70% year over year. And that an organization like that moves very quickly. There's not a lot of time to think about things. You have to, in some cases, go on instinct. But also, because of what we do at Pendo, we're collecting a lot of sensitive information, potentially sensitive information that our customers send to us, and we have to ensure that our security program is able to protect that information, but also make that information usable for our customers and improving their software experiences. So again, bringing that knowledge from my past work experience to that, had to very quickly apply coming in as the really the first and only security person for the first few months. Okay, what are the issues, and how can I help improve things quickly, and then build a team at the same time. So I'm both executing, doing a lot of hands-on work, whereas at Duke I was not doing a lot of hands-on work, while I'm building a team that now is able to, as 4 years later, is doing a lot of the work themselves. So personally, I've gotten a lot of, I like that. I like being able to bounce between doing hands-on work and then strategic management work. So I think Pendo from that perspective is a great fit for me, because I don't enjoy it when all I'm doing is just talking about things, right? I like actually being able to put my hands on things and actually help get some of that work done. But again, that we can see the success of what we're doing in our sales. When we're able to, we have some very large companies in highly regulated industries, financial services, healthcare, just being two big examples of that. And a lot of those deals would not close if we could not get past the security reviews that our customers are doing. So all the work that my team does to prepare us for that, it's very fulfilling to see us be able to answer those questions and prove to our customers that we have the right security program in place to protect that data that they send to us. By removing that friction from the sales process, we can help Pendo continue growing. So a lot of people think about security just in the context of risk, managing risk, reducing risk, and that's certainly a big part of it. But I also like to look at it as a business enabler. If we're not doing the things that we're doing as part of our security program, Pendo would not be able to continue growing, and in particular selling to a lot of those larger enterprise customers that are very security conscious.
Great, and I was just going to take the what you started to say about different roles you've played in your career and go a little bit deeper into that. But first, it really strikes me that what you've done, whether it's Symantec, which is built around the space and security, healthcare, which clearly has incredibly sensitive information, and that's important, or a fast-growing business that focuses on helping lots of other companies with data and analytics, that's a critical role. So I think there's been a tremendous amount of growth in information security and risk management in general. But I would just point out to the people that are listening, if you think about the sector and the area with which the company is acting in, you'll have a good sense for how critical that function is. So I would personally think that in all three of those roles, not only is the role important and growing, but the importance of information security and risk management is quite high. So my question to you is around skills and responsibilities, and how individually, personally for you, your skills have evolved and your roles have changed over the course of your career as CISO now.
Sure. When I first got started in the industry, security was not really a discipline, an independent discipline. It was just part of what we did. My first job was in systems administration. So very technical role, managing thousands of systems at a university. Actually, it was my very first job. And, again, security was just part of what we did. Through the first 10 or 12 years of my career, security started becoming a discipline in and of itself. And I found that interesting, and I had some opportunities to move into that and focus on that. And I was able to bring the technical skills into that, because I think to be successful in security, you do need to understand the technology, how technology works, and in particular how those risks, what the risks are that you need to be on the lookout for. But I think security is an interesting field because it's not just about the technology. It's also about putting the technology and those risks in the context of the business and what the business is trying to accomplish. And so that's actually one of the reasons I decided early in my career to go back and get an MBA, a Master's in Business Administration. My original degree was a technical degree, actually, in physics. So I did not take a lot of business classes when I was getting my undergraduate degree. I found as I was moving into IT management and then IT security, I needed to understand business. I needed to be able to talk to other business leaders. So I needed to broaden my skills out in that space. So I went and learned about accounting. I went and learned about finance. I went and learned about marketing, because those things were not something that I just sort of inherently knew. But it really helped me then to be able to go and talk with the other business leaders and understand what their concerns were, and also to communicate to them what the issues were on the security side, what the risks were that they needed to be on the lookout for. So I think that's the last thing I would just sort of point out, is that communication is an incredibly important asset for anybody going into information security, whether it's talking to people like we're doing right now, or written reports, presentations, et cetera. When I was at Symantec, that was a big part of what we did. We were doing analysis and providing reports back to our customers. If they didn't get value out of those reports, if they couldn't understand what we were trying to tell them, they obviously would not keep doing business with us, right? So being able to clearly communicate the concerns to them was hugely important. Same thing at Duke when I was starting to build the program there, and at Pendo. If I couldn't understand that the side what the business was telling me, and then put the risks back in the context of the business and communicate that clearly back to for example, the board of directors, I would not get the support that I needed to actually build out the security program. So just I would kind of summarize that by saying, yes, technology is a very important aspect of a career in cybersecurity. And I think you need a grounding in technology, but I think understanding business, how businesses work, and being able to communicate are at least as important as understanding the technology.
Thank you. What's the biggest challenge you face as CISO now, and why is it so hard?
I think if you look at the news, right, we're constantly bombarded with all sorts of bad stories about hacking, ransomware, things of that nature that are happening that are affecting companies. And quite frankly, that can be exhausting to see all of that bad stuff happening around you and just worrying, is that going to happen to us tomorrow? And the reality is, most organizations do ultimately have security issues that they have to deal with, and you have to be ready to deal with an incident, possibly a data breach. Hopefully you don't, but those things are realities in our industry, and I think you have to be mentally prepared for the worst case scenario. And I think for me, one of the ways I do that is I engage a lot with my peers. Fortunately, the information security industry has a lot of great places where I can go in and talk to other CISOs, talk to other people that are individual contributors even, and just understand, what's working for you, what are the challenges that you have, and then, sharing my own issues, right? So being able to be open with other people and share ideas and quite frankly, just have some empathy, with what others are doing. I think that really helps me get over that. But yes, it's a challenge. I think that's the biggest challenge, is just the stress that we deal with in the industry. Is not an easy job by any stretch, just because of all of those attacks that we see in the news.
So a decade or two ago, hacking was kind of a counterculture movement, and it's become much more mainstream. The area is a rapid growth area, and many people are looking at going into information security and risk management. How do you attract new talent, and how do you retain the existing team members that you have in a tight labor market and with those pressures that you were talking about that a lot of people face in the industry?
Well, first off, one of the ways I try to attract talent is, again, that networking, getting out into the field, talking with other, either people that are already established in their career or people that are interested in moving into information security. I do talks and presentations at other universities. We have a lot of professional organizations that do meetup events, and I'll go and do presentations at those, or just go and talk to other people. So I think that's the first aspect, is just networking. And if I were somebody, or my advice to somebody who's looking for a job in security, is to go to those types of events. Is look for them in your local area. Go try to meet people. There are also online events that you could potentially do as well. So networking is a big piece of that. The next piece of it is, once we've actually hired somebody, I need to make sure that I give them a great environment to work in. So I try not to be a micromanager. I try to give people autonomy and make sure that they have the support that they need to do the work that they're there to do. I don't want to tell them how to do their job. I want to provide them guidance when they need help, obviously, but the other big aspect to it is ensuring that they have a career path in front of them. So I want to make sure that we have charted a course so that they can continue growing as a professional. I don't want anybody to feel like that they're in a dead-end job, that they know what those next steps are, and that we make training opportunities available to them. I also focus heavily on diversity in our team. Make sure that we have a mix of obviously different types of skills, ages, genders, etc. I think that creates a better team atmosphere, and if we're all thinking and looking the same as each other. So and I think that also helps attract people when they see that environment where we've opened things up, and we clearly are accepting of people from different cultures, different backgrounds. So that's something I heavily focus on as well.
Great. And just the last question for you before starting a conversation with Andre Vidal has to do with what you just said in terms of diversity in the InfoSec workforce. So you have more demand than you have supply often in terms of talented professionals. What has happened to the workforce in terms of diversity, and if there have been changes in how have those emerged?
Yeah, I mean, I believe there is a much more diverse pool of candidates out there than I've certainly seen 10 years ago. It was very much a male dominated industry 10 or 15 years ago. Today I see again, people from different cultures, different genders, just it is a much more diverse talent pool. Going to those meetup events, I see, again, lots of people from different backgrounds there. So I do believe the industry is attracting people from different backgrounds, different genders into into the industry. And what I hope to do, one of my goals as a security leader, both at Pendo as well as just in the industry in general, is to give opportunities for people. So even if I can't hire them directly in my organization, try to make sure if we've found somebody or run across somebody at a meetup event that seems to have some passion and some great interests, and some wants to build a career in cybersecurity, to introduce them to my peers that may be hiring. So we, even if I don't have that job open for them, trying to make sure that that we spread the word about candidates that are out there. And a lot of my peers will do the same thing. We may be interviewing for a position, and we might have multiple candidates that we would like to hire. Maybe we only have one position. It's not uncommon for us to then, for example, in our we have some Slack channels that we use for CISOs that we communicate with each other through. Sometimes we'll share a resume of somebody that we ran across that we would love to hire, but we weren't able to do that. So that's something, again, that we try to do, in particular, just ensuring that people that might not have all the advantages that, for example, I might have had at the beginning of my career, just trying to make sure people can get their feet in the door and have those opportunities to get their start in the industry. Oftentimes that's what it takes, is just getting that first job. And then from there, that the growth just takes care of itself. But yeah, just trying to help out wherever I can with that.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Chuck. I look forward to seeing you back when we finish up the one-on-one conversations and have the roundtable. Agora eu vou trocar para português e conversar e dar as boas-vindas para o
Now I'm
André.
going to switch to Portuguese, and now I'm going to welcome André Vidal. She's the security officer at a Brazilian Pagar.me, which is a Brazilian paying company. He's responsible for security operations and cybersecurity. She has more than 10 years experience in vulnerability management, compliance analysis, and resilient projects. And not only he has his hands dirty, but for monitoring and solving vulnerabilities and incidents, he creates recovering plans and defines tips for reducing risk. Andrea, it's a pleasure to have you here today. Thank you so much, Jason. It's a pleasure to be here. Well, my first question is very similar to what I asked Chuck. What does Pagar.me do, and what is the importance of information security to it? Well, Pagar.me is part of a financial ecosystem, Group Histórico. Every client that has a we didn't hear you, Vidal. Apologize. You're on mute. We cannot listen to what he's saying.
Tente assim.
Pronto.
Melhorou? Agora sim.
Better now? Yeah. Okay. Pagar.me is part of a financial ecosystem, the Group Histórico. And with that, every client who has an e-commerce or a online store or that does any online sales, they can work with us. Pagar.me is part of a group that can help Brazilian entrepreneurs for physical sales and virtual sales. The information department here is one of our main pillars to support our store owners, our clients. And with that, we focus in hiring and retaining and culture improvement, everything that we can do best help them to have a better participation in the Brazilian market. So you have very strong professional experience in cybersecurity in Brazil. I know from my experience with banks, when I arrived in Brazil during the 90s, Brazilian banking service was way ahead of US banks. So there are very important difference in service offers in terms of technology and culture that impact your operations in Brazil, different from other countries where you have where you act. There are some regulations that are very close to what the US and Europe or Asia has, but Brazil, well, we have a central bank with a very strong regulation level in terms of information security. Talking about that, a couple of months ago, the central bank issued a bill making all financial institutions to uh, get stronger in terms of security. The idea in terms of is to keep the culture and keep our clients relying on us. Talking about bank and money, we do need to have a certain level of regulations, and that helps the information um, security area here in Brazil. Another question that it's the same question that I asked Chuck. What was your greatest challenge, and why is that so hard? I was gonna say exactly what he said. You asked me to focus on my second question, but the market, when you talk about information security, cybersecurity, it doesn't have borders anymore. Attacks that are happening with Pendle clients are the same that are happening to our clients here in Brazil. So the all incident of vulnerabilities of risks in terms of cybersecurity happens with no borders. There are no more borders for this. But I'm focused on the second part in terms of hiring talents. Why? In the 90s, we came to Brazil. We almost worked together in different decades, but hiring experts is very complicated today. Today, we have uh, a huge variety of qualification that is very hard for someone who's starting their career in terms of deciding among 30 or 40 possibilities that are open to them. When I had to choose, I decided to be an engineer. I'm a mechatronic engineering. I work with cybersecurity because I love it. I love this uh, sector, but it's completely different from when I made my choice from what people are starting now and can and they can decide on what career they want to follow. Oh, I want to go into cybersecurity, but in what part of cybersecurity I want to work on? Development or vulnerability analysis, which is my uh, expertise, monitoring or governance or assessment management. So it's very hard to find people that are uh, high technical knowledge. Very good. So this global scarcity that we're talking about has impact Pagarme in a sense that you are embracing diversity in order to retain and recruit talents? And if yes, how? Thankfully, we are not having any issues in terms of retention, at least not on my team. Lillian's gonna talk later on, but in my team, we have a very strong culture. We have a team culture. We support each other. We grow together. We create a fertile land so that everyone can develop. Information as cyber security doesn't have any border anymore. I will be fighting for a talent with against Chuck, and that can happen at any time. But here at Pagarme, I like to say that I really don't look at the technical part. If it has someone who is in beginning of their career, or if they have that willingness to make a difference, I'm not really concerned about the technical part. I prefer to look at their culture, uh, what their heart is telling them. And that's the person that we're gonna try to bring home. And once they are here, of course, we try to uh, give them some sort of security. We are always trying to look for diversity. Doesn't matter if it's gender diversity or any sort of spectrum. I have TDHD. It's very interesting. It's very hard for me to work in a technical area because it requires a lot of focus, analysis, and correlations. But it was very positive for me that my TDHD, my hyper focus was in puzzles, challenges, and cybersecurity is a great place to have a challenge. So we discuss this a lot, and I tried to bring this security, this safety to my team, a safety place for you to grow and to grow your dreams as well and make the best of you. So thank you, Vidal, and we're gonna talk soon in our roundtable. Okay, we are receiving your questions. You can keep sending your questions through our social media. We are gonna try to address most of them. And now I have the honor to introduce two UNINTER students who are or were global ambassadors who participated in an open competition with thousands of candidates. And I'm really glad to have the opportunity. I had the opportunity to meet them last year and this year. Lilian's going to talk first. She's a global ambassador this year, 2022-2023. She's working her physics bachelor BA at UNINTER. She is a professor at Nassau's Academy, and she just finished a course today in a different institution. She is autistic and transgender, and he has won some medals in sports shooting in Brazil, gold medal for Brazil in sports shooting. Thank you so much, Jason. Hello, everyone. Lira, my question to you. As a cybersecurity professor, a transgender woman and member of the next generation of leaders in the area, what are your thoughts about your career in cybersecurity so far? And what are your expectations for the future? Look, my career was really erratic. I can tell you that. When I started studying cybersecurity, I didn't even know that it could be seen as a career, like in 2002. I was a child at that time. Then I started working at a consulting company. I had the opportunity to be transferred to the cybersecurity, and then they threw me to the fire. I did a complicated test, and I had a very good degree in the technical part. But my greatest issue is the fact that I'm in the autistic spectrum, so sometimes I'm not very good in communications. The transgender issue was not that much of a problem, but with time, dedication, and a lot of study, I managed to overcome this issue. And I've been working in cybersecurity, and it's been great, fun. I haven't had many issues. I like to just give some hands up for Pagar.me. They have a great culture there. When they selected me, it was just awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lilian. And we are going to go back to you so you can ask a question when we open our roundtable. Now, Ariadne Gobo, she's a systems analyst at GNT Groups, a company focused in digital transformation. She is a Google develop. She's a system analysis and development course at Uninter. She's almost done, and she's part of the team that created the Google Developer Student Club at Uninter last year. Her passions are public health, and she has a degree in nutrition before studying at Uninter. She studied nutrition at the Paraíba State University. She represents many people in our audience who uh, went through a career change. So welcome, Ariadne. And my question right away for you is, how a young professional who changed her career, who lived in different places in Brazil, what would be your advisor for our students interested in the career in IT or cybersecurity and don't know how to start? Good evening, everyone. How are you? Well, as Jason said, I had a career change recently. So for the past 10 months, I started actually working in a different area. I started as an intern, a backend developer, a Java developer. Um, in May this year, I was hired full time, and now I'm a junior systems analyst. I don't work directly with cybersecurity, even though indirectly I do because I deal with data. And when you deal with data, we deal with security. My advice for those who are starting in the technology field, not only technology, but any area you want to work in your professional life, talk to people who are making it happen. Talk to people with experience. When you're deciding the area you want to work with or how to make this career change, which was my case, or in terms of deciding, does that make sense to you? Listening to people who work with them. How is your day-to-day life? What's your routine? What's your study routine to see whether it makes sense to your reality. And now going to IT, you can take some beginners courses like programming logics, because when you work with software development, it's a lot more complex, but it can give you an idea of what is a computer language, a programming language. You get an idea of what you're going to do and how to do it. I think it's crucial to talk to people with experience because each one of us have their own goals and followed our own path. So sometimes you have an experience in something and you say, if I could, I would have done it differently. And this person, within their knowledge and their experience, they can tell you what they did, what were their goals to make their life, their career work. And then you can start drawing your own goals to reach where you want to get. So now let's go to our roundtable. I'm going to monitor our questions here. So everybody who are with us today, please feel free to send more questions. We are going to try to answer most of them. Now I'm going to switch to English and I'm going to invite Lilian to ask the first question to one of our guests here. Lilian.
Thank you so much for starting our roundtable part of the event, and please take the floor to ask your question. You're on. We can see you.
Ok, desculpa. A primeira pergunta é sobre. Deixa eu só achar aqui que eu me perdi.
Okay, my first question is Currently, we have been seeing hackers attack in company system. When that happens, it means that the system use hasn't been completely implemented. And the question is from Alinea.
So Lillian,
só não entendi essa parte.
no, Lillian, what I was actually hoping is that you would ask a question of one of our guests. So I don't know if you might have a question for Chuck, and we were going to do that in English just to make it easier for him. It's not a problem.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I do have a question for Chuck, and it's about the diversity program at Pendo. I have taken a look at the report, and it seems amazing results. And I would like to ask, how have you managed to keep all that diversity, to bring in all that diversity? Because at least here in Brazil, a lot of people of CISOs and CTOs say that they just cannot get diverse people to work. So that's kind of my question. How have you done that?
Okay, great question, Lillian. I think part of it is providing a safe environment for people to be themselves. And it's actually part of our core values to do that. So we want people to to be themselves at work. That's just, it's the way we interact with each other. Actually, we have what are called affinity groups at Pendo, representing different types of diversity. We have, for example, female engineers. We have women at Pendo. We have a GSRM group, which focuses on the LGBTQ community. And each of those has co-chairs that organize events that are occurring, I think, roughly every 2 weeks. Each of those groups has an event. And I think those are great because it's not just for the people who identify in those areas, but also for allies like myself. I attend to those meetings. I've been an executive sponsor for some of those groups. I think that's another key piece, is seeing Pendo leadership actually actively participating in those groups, and being the executive sponsor, for example, helping those groups get resources that they need to be successful. So, I mean, that's one aspect to it, but just on a day-to-day basis, I think a big piece of it is just treating each other like humans, and having an environment, again, where people are comfortable in being themselves. I think that there's a feedback loop that creates. We attract more people that have those characteristics, and the more people we have like that, the more diverse the workforce is that we're able to hire. So my very first hire in my security team was a female security engineer. And I think that set the right tone. Other people from the outside looking in saw our team, that the first person I'm hiring is not another white male like myself, but a female engineer. My second hire was another female engineer. So I think that's really a key piece also, is just creating a team that looks like the world. I think that helps attract people. Does that answer your question, Lillian?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Agora eu convido a Ariadne a fazer uma pergunta, por favor.
Now I'm going to invite Ariadne to ask a question. Hi, my question is to Vidal, and I think it's going to be very interesting for our students starting this career, the technology career as a whole. Actually, I'd like to congratulate Jason and Carol for making this meeting available, because it's such an important topic to talk about. And people who are getting into technology, we always talk about, you need to know LGPD, which is the protection law in Brazil, but we don't teach about security or cybersecurity. When you get into the field, we have like a load of information of what you need to learn, and you need to have a solid base to deliver quality services, including security. But even when you are looking for courses, boot camp, it's not at all that. So my question to you, Vidal, is for students, and those who are starting in the development area or technology as a whole, not necessarily cybersecurity. Like for us as a junior analyst, I want to know for myself, what will be, in your experience, what will be the main authors for books, courses that you would recommend to go deeper in cybersecurity? And what are the tools for someone beginning in this career in when they are building a code to deliver a safety code that adds value to the company, to the client? Awesome question. Awesome. When I started in cybersecurity, I also had many questions. Just to remind you, I started as an engineer. So cybersecurity was a mandatory part of my training. But then I fell in love with the topic. I was really lucky to work in a cybersecurity consulting company, but this consulting company opened many doors for me. Let's try to break down the cybersecurity area. First of all, it's not a technology department, it's not a technology field. Cybersecurity tries to manages to talk with the developers, engineer, platform infrastructure, legal, compliance, management, finance. So we are a cross area within a company, and we can talk, speak the language of any of these areas. To start, as we are not a technology area, we use technology to work our process and so on and so forth. But the first thing I would say is what I want to do for my life, in my life. So if you say, I want to work as an engineer or in engineering, which is development, or cybersecurity or QA, with code quality, for example, the first thing that you need to do is understand the best format to write a code. There are some um, frameworks like OS top 10 that work with infrastructure. We have the OS as for safe development. That is a very great place for you to study. But Fidel, I want uh, to have a base like cybersecurity 101. We will with a framework of best practice called ISO 27001. This ISO is our pocketbook on what to do, and you can use it in every area you want. Imagine cybersecurity 101. It's a culture. It's a lot more than technology or IT. If you want to get into cybersecurity, doors are open. We have positions here. Excellent. Now I'm going to pass to our audience. We have three similar questions. Rebecca Fonseca asks why there's such a deficit in terms of professionals. Are you getting into cyber criminals because they real because they make more money like that? And a developer asks, how can you have experience without the first opportunity? And the third question that has to do with people and labor. International cybersecurity market recruits a lot of Brazilians. It recruits a lot of Brazilians. That's a question. So these questions goes to all of our guests.
About the international hiring in the area. It would be great if you could take that and se agora podem responder para começar as perguntas de Rebeca e do Bill.
And now you can start asking, answering the questions about from Rebecca first. Why this lack of people? And how can you get the first opportunity to work in this career?
começar.
André, can you start? Yeah. From a lack of talent for this sector, lack of workforce. First of all, cybersecurity became very modular, very extensive, and cybersecurity is more like a culture than a technology area, as I said. Some people started migrating to other areas. It's not a matter of wages, because compensation is very good in cybersecurity, both in Brazil and around the world. It's not a matter of difficulties, because every area has their own difficulties. If you want to grow in your career in infrastructure, platforms, or engineering and development, you have to study a lot. You have to work a lot to achieve your dream. But I think cybersecurity became so modular that it lost a little bit of its identity. Of course, there are some education, some institutions that focus their learning as you, but it's not as well known in Brazil as other. We have other universities that don't have this subject or this discipline in their curriculum. About the second point, when you ask about if people are going to the cybersecurity, people are going to the dark side of the fourth. You know, hackers has always been there. Brazilians, okay, I'm not going to talk about Brazilians, but all over the world, there are frauds, and that's very natural. But with the internet, we had easier access to frauds, both in US, Europe, or Brazil. So we don't have people migrating to the dark side of the force. I actually can see less fraud in 2022 than 2021. Ótimo.
About international hiring, and if there are lots of Brazilians that are being hired internationally, that would be great. And feel free to add anything if you have any comment about early professional opportunities as well.
Sorry, Jason, I missed the very first part of the question there.
No problem. So the first part of the question is about the international market and the hiring of Brazilians in cybersecurity, and we can just start with that.
Sure. Right. So again, cybersecurity is a global discipline. So different companies may be have different requirements in terms of where they hire at. Some companies, for example, may have requirements that they only hire, for example, in the US or in the EU. So I'm not that familiar with the Brazilian market in terms of exactly how that would impact the potential for international hires. But I think because of the talent shortage globally, there are definitely opportunities for people with that skill set to immigrate to countries where maybe those jobs do exist. And certainly I know companies are looking to set up remote offices in other parts of the world where maybe there are bigger talent pools or untapped talent pools that maybe are available that they can't get in their home countries. So I mean, that's certainly a possibility. Unfortunately, like I said, I don't know that much about the Brazilian market personally to know what that looks like, but I certainly know companies are always looking for untapped markets of talent, and it sounds like Brazil has one of those markets.
Great, thank you. I'm going to give this next question in English. It's from Antonio Nunes, even though the question was made in Portuguese, because it's made to both Chuck and to Andre. So the question is about attacks and where do the majority of the attacks or the problems come from? Are those poorly implemented systems? Is it poor configuration that's being exploited, or is it human error? I know that all of those happen, but I think the question is what's most common?
The most common thing is social engineering or phishing. So most of the major breaches that occur, they usually start with somebody who has been phished, and that individual, they gain the login credentials for that individual. Hopefully they have multi-factor authentication turned on, which makes it harder, but not impossible for the attacker to then use those credentials. But that oftentimes is where most of the issues occur. Just getting an account which lets them into the server, into the system that they're trying to gain access to. And the attackers will target people that they know have elevated privileges in the organization. So for example, people who are systems administrators that might have access to more systems or more data, or database administrator, or for example, somebody in finance that may have access to finance systems. So that is definitely where most of the attacks happen. Certainly a lot more things, website vulnerabilities. We could have a couple hours of discussion around that, but I think most of the breaches that you see in the news, ransomware attacks and things of that nature, usually start with a phishing email or text message or something of that nature.
So Andre, I saw you shaking your head in agreement during much of Chuck's response. Is there anything that you would like to add or complement either in English or Portuguese? Nope, same?
Não, mesma coisa, os mesmos ataques.
No, not really. Same thing, same attacks. The same attacks that are happening all over the world happens in Brazil. So I totally agree with Chuck. Now I'm going to one more question. We have a question from Ricardo Diaz about the Brazilian data protection law in terms of information privacy. So this law came to help or create more bureaucracy. What are your opinions? Well, I think that it creates some sort of barrier and control of some sort of information. Before, the use of some personal data like name, social security number in general, everything was totally exposed. It could be used for anything when someone went to the drugstore. And now we do have a regulation for protection in terms of not passing on this data. So it is here to bureaucratize. Great, let's make it harder for fraudsters to have access to it.
Impacting the market. Is that a help? Is that a hindrance? Or is it both?
I am sorry again, Jason, I missed the very first part of that.
No problem. So it's the European privacy standards and requirements for data. What's the impact of those? Positive, negative, or a mixed?
I think it's positive. It's set a high bar that because everybody, most organizations are global these days, and we want to do business, whether it's in the US and Brazil or in the EU or any place else. We try to find, what's the high bar that we're going to have to meet, because we can't develop security controls that are specific to each of those countries, right? So we GDPR, which is the regulation in the EU, which I think was sort of the first one that really established itself in the space, set a standard, which I think most of the other regulations that I've seen come along since then, and I'm not familiar with the one in Brazil. I think I saw it mentioned in the chat earlier, the LGPD, I believe it is. But I suspect it's very similar to GDPR and has a lot of very similar requirements. And so if we can meet the bar of GDPR, likely we're going to be able to meet the bar of the LGPD. Or, for example, in California here in the US has the CCPA. If you start comparing them, it's very different. So if I can address GDPR, I'm pretty good on CCPA already. So I think that helps, because we obviously can't, if there are hundreds of countries across the world, and I can't have different security programs for each country, right? Or each state, even within the United States, the same sort of thing is popping up. But yeah, we try to find the high bar, and the European Union has set that with GDPR.
Excellent, thank you. Então, a última pergunta, porque a gente está chegando aqui no final do
Final
evento.
question, because you're coming to an end. It's about opportunities for professionals older than 50 years old. Is there a space for these people?
Vidal e depois aí.
Vidal, and then Chuck. And if Lilian wanna say something as well. Jason, there's space for any age, any gender, anyone in cybersecurity. Cybersecurity doesn't discriminate age, doesn't look at age. It's looking for a willingness to protect information. The name is cybersecurity. What is your heart is going to be in terms of protecting systems, companies in sensitive information? There's space for everyone.
Great. And Chuck, if you could just, so summarizing, if the question didn't come through to you, is there space for the 50 plus set who are interested in going into information security?
Absolutely, I qualify 50 plus here. Yeah, I completely agree. There's opportunities for everyone. I think if you've been established in a prior career, you maybe have a lot of business experience. That is, again, as I was saying earlier, business experience is very important in getting a start in cybersecurity, just understanding how businesses operate, being able to communicate in business language. So, more experienced workers are probably coming with that experience. They may need to learn some of the technology. Technology, I think, is easy to learn. It sometimes learning how businesses work and learning how to communicate is actually harder than learning the technology. So absolutely, there's plenty of opportunity for older workers as well to migrate into cybersecurity.
Thank you. Então, eu gostaria de rapidamente dar super.
Now, I'd like to thank you so much, everyone, Chuck, Vidal, Lilian, Ariadne, and everybody at Uninter who made this event possible, especially those who have joined us, who have a lot of work and studies to do in your life, and we only have 24 hours a day. So thank you so much for your time. We are gonna have another event next week and the following. So let's go and look for more information in our social media. So good evening.